few minutes so that I could, yes, record. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just record and then I'll share with you later. Okay.
Thank
All right, I'm sorry. So that was interrupting. That was getting me a bit distracted, but I'm back now. Yeah. Okay. So I was saying that it's not really just about saying how do I cross off more items from my to-do list, right? It's really about how do you make sure that you're focusing on the right things? How do you make sure that you are focusing on the things that are most important to you, the things that align ultimately with your goals, your purpose, and your priority, right? And one thing that structure is not is it's not this set of, people think of it sometimes as, oh, at 9 a.m., this is what I have to be doing. At 10 a.m., this is what I have to be doing. People think that it takes the fun out of their lives. It stops them from being innovative, from being, from having fun or from being creative, right? You hear people say, oh, I'm free-spirited. I don't like this and having my time all planned out and everything. And I hear you, right? But the truth is, if we want to live the life that we've really been called to live, there is a measure of discipline that is required. And that is what structure brings. But again, structure is not meant to be rigid and inflexible, right? A properly designed structure actually helps you to be more innovative. It actually frees up your time, for you to actually have the fun that you want, to be able to rest enough, to be able to be creative, if the structure is designed properly. And, we will start to touch on that as we go on. Okay, so now we talked about what structure is, and the second bit is, why is structure important? So there's something that one of my coaches say, DDK, she talks so much about intentional life design, where you really want to live a life that you don't need a vacation from. And when we say you don't need a vacation from that life, it's not that, you will not go on holidays, or you will not go on leave from work, or you won't go on a vacation. No, that's not what it means. But it means that basically you're living a life that you truly enjoy, right? It's not a case of your life being a drudgery or your life being something that you just want to escape. Yes, there will be periods of high intensity where you are stretched by a particular season in your life, right? There will be periods when you have, you actually have planned downtimes, planned rest times. Your life is just literally in that rhythm where things are working. Maybe that's the best way to put it. And you don't need a vacation from that life. Structure, amongst many other things, help you to achieve that. The other thing structure does is it gives you the freedom to focus on the things that are most important to you. A properly structured life, and it's something I would keep hammering on as we go on. A properly structured life would actually help you focus on your priorities, would make sure that the things that are at the center of who you are, at the core of who you are, do not suffer because of everything else going on around you, right? So if, for example, you have a family, you have maybe a spouse, and you have kids, and they are really important to you, right? The structure you would create, if you create the right structure in your life, it would help to ensure that they are taken care of. The home front is taken care of. You create time for them, right? If your spiritual life, your Christian and your relationship with God is, at the core of who you are, a properly structured life helps to ensure that you actually make out time to nurture that relationship, right? If you're someone who, and we should all be that person who you have really great friendships, or you have key friendships, right? The structure in your life would ensure that you make out time to be able to service those friendships. Or you're at a stage in your life where you want to grow your career, or you want to grow your business, right? The structure in your life helps you to, make sure that you are able to dedicate time to do that, for that career growth or for the business growth. Okay? When you have structure, it also increases the chances of you achieving your goals, right? because you've stated clearly that, okay, these are the things that are important for me in this season, right? So there are some things that are at your core and it's always consistent, never changes, but your priorities per season always changes, right? And so you create that structure to accommodate those priorities, those goals that you have set for the year. So if, for example, a goal you've had this year is to get maybe a particular certification, maybe a PMP certification or something, then the reality is, because it's a goal, because it's a priority for the year, then you ideally need to structure your life. It's not going to happen by chance, right? You ideally need to structure your life to give time for study, to give time to attend the classes, to give time to prepare for the exams, right? And the beautiful thing is that while you are focusing on the priorities for your life, at that particular season, a properly designed structure also ensures that the other areas of your life don't suffer. One of the things that we see, I live in Lagos, and for many people that live in Lagos, one of the things that you see is that for many people who are career moms, so let me use career moms as an example, there's this notion that you have a thriving career, it means that maybe your home life will suffer, or things are at disarray at home, or it means that your own, you're not able to take care of yourself, right? But as you get better with structuring your life, you're actually able to manage all of these things. One of the things that I struggle with the most is when, how you search Google and then you're searching for career mom or a working mom, and you see this picture of this, woman who is trying to do so many things. She always looks so harried. She always looks very, I don't even know what word. Someone should help me with the word in the chat box, to describe this woman who seems to just be juggling too many balls in the air, right? And in my head, I'm like, does this have exhausted? Yes, Jessica, I think that's the word. Exhausted, tacky. Yes. And I'm just like, there has to be a better way. There just has to be a better way, for this to be done. We cannot assume that workaholic indeed, right? And for us not to even leave the men, let's talk about the men a bit, right? Where there's always that impression that, you're a man, you have to focus on work, you're trying to make money for the family, or you're trying to take care of responsibilities, and so you don't have as much time to spend with the kids. And it just seems like, okay, is this really what it should be? How do I ensure that I have consistent results across all areas of my life? How do I ensure that, with my family, I'm there with my own physical, whether exercise, fitness, things are in order, with my career, things are in order. I'm literally seeing results in all of these areas. That is what structure will help you achieve. Okay, then of course, I started with this whole bit about living above the overwhelm. Enough, Lagos. So typically when I'm going to work in the mornings, and then you look around, you look to your left and your right, the typical Lagos driver is always very aggressive, very angry. But then you also see the people who are in the buses, and most people just look tired. Right, at 7 a.m. in the morning, 6 a.m. in the morning, or whatever time people go out, people already look so exhausted. And you're just like, no, this is not life. This should not be it. There has to be a better way. There has to be a solution. There has to be a system, right? And, it brings me to the fifth point, which is, I honestly believe a structured life is God's original intent for us. I'm a Christian. My faith is very important to me, and I honestly think it's the way God has designed us to live. Because if you think about the creation story, God created all of this. And I have this productivity guide that I prepared one time. I was talking about 10 lessons on structure and productivity from the creation story. It's fascinating how much order was in that process, right? And then when you even think about how God does everything. How you have God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, how Jesus led his disciples, even how the disciples did everything, how the disciples did everything after, how they structured the church, you would see that there was order, there was structure, and we're created in the image of God, right? And so therefore, it almost, it's basically telling us that this is how we are designed, we were originally designed to live. And, Dorcas mentioned something at the beginning when she was talking about DT think tank and what they do. She's like, if you have an idea, you have a social impact idea that you want to execute, because there are big problems in this world. Like, you just need to look around across all sectors. There are major problems. And for us to actually solve these big problems alongside our careers or our businesses, we need structure. That's really the only way we'll be able to make out time, for the deep work that is required. Right. So now I know I've spent a bit of time talking about what structure is and why structure, but I thought it was important to lay that foundation to get us to the point where we are convinced that structure is the only way to go. Like, I will do the work that is required, the work that is required to ensure that I put the right structure in my life. So let me know in the chat box if you're still with me and if anything has stood out for you so far before we now move on. So just do that for like a minute or two, and then we'll move on to the how. Okay. Structure is the way to go. Indeed. Thank you, Dorcas. Okay, let me see. Still waiting in the chat box. It gives clarity. Yes, it does. It really does. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so I would move on to the how, but the how. So but before we go on, there were just three things I wanted to highlight. Is you need to be very clear on your why, and it's one of the reasons why I spent the time laying that foundation, because at the end of it, right, it's not a microwave solution. And as we go into the how, you realize that it's really not a microwave solution per se. It requires work, and you need to do the work, and you need to put in the time. And as you're doing the work, what keeps you motivated and what keeps you focused is when you're very clear on the why. Why do you think you need to structure your life? Getting that personal conviction makes sure that you're able to see it through to the end, right? The beautiful thing is that while it's not a microwave solution, but there are baby steps that we can take. There's always that one thing that you can start to do today that will make a difference, or that will make an impact. Right? And then the third thing is, it requires a high level of self-awareness, to be honest, for you to put structure in your life. And the reason why I mentioned that is because what works for me, Bisola, might not work for someone else, right? What works for Dorcas might not work for Tini Talk, but what works for Jessica, would not work for someone else on this call. And so you have to know yourself. You have to know you, right? You need to know what motivates you. You need to know how you work. You need to know what things distract you. And so as we go on, you will see me I will keep making reference to how, why you need to know yourself and the things you need to know about yourself. Okay, so now let's go to structuring you, the how. And 1, 2, 3 steps is first, determine where you are. And for you to do that, it's really to do an evaluation of your life today. How do you spend your time? So if you were to do a time audit for like a few days, and really just try to say that this is how I spend my time. What do you find? Like, would you find anything surprising? Would you find that? And it's very easy for us to say that, oh, well, it's very easy now. 1 hour or 2 hours in the morning, I do this, then I'm 8 hours at work, and then I come home. That's probably, for those of us that have 9 to 5, so you have a business you go to every day, that's probably that would be like a high level of how we how we go about our day, but just try to do it every hour for like a day or two. You'd actually be surprised what you find, right? Maybe do it during the weekday, then do it over a weekend to just have a feel typically of how you spend your time. That's on the time audit. The evaluation around your life should also be things like, how do you feel at the end of every day, right? Do you feel like you've achieved what you set out to do? How do you feel at the end of the week? Do you constantly feel exhausted? Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel like you've hit your goals? Do you feel discouraged? Just have a sense of how you're doing in that area. Do you think that you're juggling too much? Do you think you're overcommitted? Just go through that process, go through that evaluation, right? It's very important that we do, because this again helps you to say, okay, this is my baseline, this is where I am. Then the second thing is define where you want to be, right? Define where you want to be. So if and when I say where you want to be, it has to be, if you think about an ideal day or an ideal week or an ideal month, and what would that look like for you across the various areas of your life, considering the things that are important to you, the things that are your priority, right? Would an ideal day be that I'm able to take my kids to bed at the end of the day? Would the ideal day be that I'm able to actually submit to meet the deadlines for my project and not constantly be late? Would an ideal day be that I'm able to have 2 hours, or sorry, an ideal week be that I'm able to have 2 hours to rest, right? So think of where you want to be, across the various areas of your life. So career-wise, family, yourself, your kids, significant other, relationships, friendships, your spiritual life, where would it be? Then the next stage is, so you know where you are, you know where you want to be. Then the next thing is how to close that gap. I imagine that there are probably many things that need to be done depending on what the gap is, but we're now looking at how you can utilize structure to close the gap, right? And the reason why this is important is because I will share a lot of things, but again, it might not be applicable to everybody, right? Because your struggle or your peculiar challenge will be different from the next person. So completing these 3 steps, is very important. And not just saying, oh, so I'll quickly skip this one and tell me the tips that I need to start to implement. You might, unconsciously, you might already know what your gaps are, but to consciously go through the process, I would encourage you to do that, right? So first thing is, so if say you've gone through the first and the second step, so you've you've evaluated your life, and you've sort of defined what you want your life to look like. Now, what are some of the things you can do to close the gap? Again, this will be different for different people depending on what the gap is. But first thing is, and I've mentioned this, but I will mention it again, is be clear on what is most important to you at your core. Right, be very clear on that, because at the end of the day, you want to create a structure in your life that does not compromise your value system, right? You want to create structure in your life that does not compromise the things that are most important to you. You want to create structure in your life that helps you achieve your life's purpose. But it's also important to realize that while the things at your core and your value systems won't change, your priorities will change part time, right? So for example, a man who has just gotten a promotion at work, to maybe a managerial position, his priority, at that for the first few months might be, how do I, understand this new role that I'm in and begin to find a way to make my mark. Whereas maybe a few months ago, his priority was trying to get certification in a particular course, right? So it means that your priorities might change per time. And that's where I talked about your structure also being flexible to adjust to your priorities when they change. right? Then after you've defined this one, that this is what is important to me, and these are the things that are my priority for this season, the first thing you have to do is to eliminate. Elimination literally is the first thing, and I would explain. Right now, the typical individual, our lives are so full, are so full. We always seem to have so much. We always seem to be overcommitted. We always seem to be on the fast lane. We need to learn to slow down, right? So the truth is, many of us are thinking, how can I cram more things into my day so that I get more done? But that's not really what it is. It's about getting the right things done. And so you have to make room for the right things. And making room for those right things does not automatically mean that you just squeeze everything together. No, the first step is, what are the things that are already occupying time and space and energy that I need to get out, right? And that is why the first step was important, of defining your value system and your priorities. So it means that the things that do not align to your value system, the things that are not priority at the moment, you really should consider eliminating them. That's the honest truth. There's this thing about the fear of missing out. I don't want to miss out. There's a course here, I need to do it. There's a program here, I need to be there. There's a project at work, I volunteered. I have a business, there's an exhibition in Abuja, I need to be there. We commit to so many things. Oh, there was a call for volunteers for something. You've quickly raised your hands. So many things. For some of us, our lives are so full, right? But we need to first slow down and then check, what are the things that I am committed to right now, the things that are taking my time, taking my energy, right? That really do not align to what is important to me. Eliminate them without emotions. As in, this one should not be an emotional, it shouldn't be emotions. But I've been in that committee for years. Okay, yes, but now it doesn't fit in with the season of your life. It is time to honorably bow out. Right? You're that friend who at a moment's notice, they know wherever the wedding is happening, even if no matter where it is, you would arrive the day before and you will leave the day after. But yeah, maybe that was when you had a lot more time, or maybe you were a student or whatever, right? But now the season of your life has changed. You need to eliminate, you need to cut some things without emotions. That's the first step. Because otherwise, you're basically trying to cram too much into little space. I mean, no matter what you do, no matter how efficient you become, you only have 24 hours and you have to sleep, right? You have to rest. No matter what you do, it's 24 hours. And no matter how energetic you are, you still have a fixed amount of energy in a day, right? So it shouldn't be about cramming more, like if I do it like this. No. And I mean, we talked about consistent results. It's not about doing shoddy work like, I will say I'm in this committee, but I'm not totally committed. No, it's about being able to deliver consistently, excellently across all areas of our lives, right? Being able to be present, not that, oh, I'm with my kids, but I'm also trying to multitask on the side so that I'm actually not paying attention to them. No, right? So eliminate without emotions. Right. So now, if we have done this, we've literally looked through our lives, and we've seen things that we need to eliminate, then we now move on to the next step, which is now delegate. For a lot of us, and this is where I need you guys to be in the chat box for me right now. For a lot of us, we do many things that we should not be the ones doing, or we don't have to be the ones doing. That's the honest truth. Whether at work, across different areas of our lives, for those of us who are married, we choose to take up so much. But you can delegate. You can delegate. What are the things that don't have to be done by you? So I'll give you an example. So I mean, during COVID, started working from home. My kids were doing the homeschooling, or well, yeah, online classes for a bit, and then they had to go back to school, but I was still working from home. So I would still drop them off in the morning and then come back home. Then it was time to, but the issue was now afternoon, picking them up in the afternoon. Now, because of Lagos traffic, for me to pick them up and come home, it would probably take me like an hour and a half to 2 hours. But I prided myself as, no, now I have to be the one doing school runs I had a driver, right? I have a driver. Like, I have to be the one doing school runs for the kids. I had just imagined that it was so important that I did it. It would be a mark on my motherhood if I did not do it. And I remember my husband telling me that, no, it doesn't make sense now that you're going to do, like, it would literally be an hour and a half every day. Now, why won't you have the driver and the nanny pick them up from school? Still drop them off in the morning, or pick them up, let them pick them up from school. By the time they're back, you're done with work, and then I can spend time with them. So is there anything about the school runs that has to absolutely be me? Right? So think about that and try to relate to other areas of your life. Now, what are the things that, so now we said you've eliminated the ones, right? So you've eliminated this ones now, but what are the things that need to be done, but it doesn't have to be you, right? Then the second bit is you have to delegate effectively. You don't just delegate to anybody, because some of these things are still important. So with the example I used, my kids, so clearly, it's important. My kids are really important to me. So I would not just delegate to anybody to say, just go and pick them up. Even with the driver and the nanny, we had to put certain precautions in place, right? We had to, kind of make sure that it could be done safely. What are the safety measures that you have to put in place? And this is where I want us to talk a bit, right? How many of us have challenges with delegating, or what are your challenges with delegating? Because I know that many people struggle with this, right? The thoughts of, maybe somebody cannot do it as well as I can, or is it for women, you don't want to delegate certain things to your husband because you think that he won't do it as well as you would. But hey, perfection, you don't always have to strive for perfection, right? And you'll be surprised that you can actually show the person how you prefer to do it, or even the person does it better than you, and maybe in less time. And since you've taken that off your plate, then you have time to focus on other things. So address your reluctance around delegation. So I see Dorcas say that I don't trust them to do it well. And I think it's something that a lot of us can relate with, right? And one of the things I'm learning is, can you teach them how? Can you coach them how? So is it something at work you prefer to prepare a certain monthly report by yourself? Does it have to be you? Can you just create a template and hand it over to someone else to say, you know what, this is a template, just populate it. So you don't have to spend 2 hours crunching data, right? Then for some others, the question is, what happens when you don't have anyone to delegate to? In fact, I'm that person that everybody seems to be delegating their task to. Maybe you're the youngest in your team, or you're the youngest at home and all. In my view, at this point, you negotiate, right? So for example, it will be a case of, let's say there's a monthly report and everybody just expects that you do it, or they expect consistently that you're the one preparing minutes of meeting. Can you make a proposal that, can we rotate this so that it's not one person? Can you make a proposal that, don't worry, I will create a template that everybody can use, so that you don't have to do too much work, just populate, and we rotate it so that it doesn't always fall on me. There are many ways you can do these things. So even when it seems, like I don't have anybody to delegate to, I would suggest that you take a step back, actually, and think about it again. Is that really true? is it really true that I cannot delegate to anybody? Or is it that it's not just as obvious and you need to consciously think about it, right? So I see that I'm running out of time very quickly, and then I will move on. Now that we've talked about, you've eliminated, you've delegated some things, so now you have created more time, right? You have freed up space in your life. The next thing is building your schedule, right? The next thing is building your schedule. Trying to mute people. Okay. Next thing is building your schedule. And now the first thing I would say is try to work in time blocks. So create time blocks in your schedule. And when I say time blocks, I mean, for those of us that have 9 to 5s, we kind of already have our lives in time blocks, right? So early mornings is trying to get ready for work and everything around that. Then the next 8 hours is focused on work. Then the evenings, also try to put it in time blocks, right? So this will be time for family and time for relaxation. And what this does is, so what time blocks would do for you is you don't feel like you have a timetable that is now like every 30 minutes, this is what I need to be doing. No. So for those people that struggle with schedules being or structure being very restrictive, a time block helps because it says that, okay, in this 1 hour or in this 2-hour block, these are the sort of things that I want to attend to. And how you choose to do it, you still have some flexibility around that. So it is this 2 hours that I am assigning to maybe family, right? So what you're going to do with them, time blocks and structured time in a kind of way, right? So I know this 2 hours is for family, but then what you do within the family time, you can decide on a case-by-case basis, on a day-by-day basis, right? Whether you're making phone calls or whether you're just hanging out with the kids or whether you decide to go out on a date night with your spouse or whatever, right? So that's it. The second thing I would always recommend is consolidate activities. I found out that works. And so when I say consolidate activities is, so say activities that are similar, put them together. So for example, and let me use work. So let's say during the work hours, you have what's it called now? So maybe you have to prepare slides or you have to prepare a report. As much as possible, all that slide preparation, report working, try to put them together and close them out at once. And the reason why it works is because you kind of just get into the flow. Once you start like this, like you would literally just be going rather than keep breaking things. So I'll do reports for 30 minutes and then you now chook one meeting in the middle. Then you now say, oh, I'll continue with reports. Because your mind is basically now just, moving all over the place, right? Which impacts your productivity. So if you can, activities that are similar, pull them together and complete them within the same time. Right? If it's things like, and it could be as simple as maybe every month you take out time to plan your finances, right? So everything that has to do with finances, paying the bills. So I'll use my husband as an example. Typically, when he needs to sort out the bills, the recurring bills and all, he does everything at once. Like one night, he does everything. So he's not saying, no, I'll pay power bills today, and then I'll come back in 30 minutes. No. So he literally does it all and takes care of it at once, right? So he just logs into the platform and then starts doing pim. And what it does is that it makes it more effective, right? So that's another example of consolidating activities. So activities that are similar within your day, right? Pull them together and try to close them out at once. Then you also need to set time aside for deep work. And deep work is that work that requires brain power, right? And the reason why I'm putting this is depending on the sort of work that you do or your career, business or whatever, you might have your day constantly being interrupted by meetings or by colleagues, or by phone calls or whatever it is, right? But you need to actually set out time, block out time in your calendar, right? When you need it, to say this time is the time that I am protecting for this focused work. So maybe you're writing a book, maybe you're doing a course and you have exams coming up. You need to set out time for that deep work. Don't just say, I will look for time in my calendar and then just slot it in wherever you find it. No, be very intentional about setting out that time and protecting that time. Then the next point is about energy management. It is really important. Very often we talk about time management, right? And it's some of the things that I've already mentioned ahead. But energy management is important because it means that you need to know, you need to understand your own energy cycle. You need to understand how to manage your own energy. You need to know the things that you drain you, right? So I for one, when I'm around people, it drains me, right? So what it means is that sometimes being in like, so when some people hear workshop, we're having a workshop at work, some people are really excited. But for me, no, because that's constantly being around, oh my goodness, it literally drains me of energy. So I know for myself that if I have like a 2-hour long meeting, for me, that is draining. No matter how productive it is draining. So I need to be able to refuel or re-energize myself right after that type of meeting. So I want to have a 2-hour meeting, and then right after I will say, oh, I need to prepare this. I need to work on this presentation that will take a lot of brain power. No, it won't work because I've done something draining. And then at the same time, I now want to quickly switch to something that would drain me again. So I know that once I've done something that drains me, takes a lot of my energy, I need to follow it with something that is a little bit lighter. So maybe just catch up on emails, for example, something light, or even just take a break before now diving into the next thing. The other thing about energy management that I would mention briefly is around energy levels, right? Your energy cycle. And I'm running out of time. I'm being conscious of time as well. Your energy cycle. And it's important that you know this as well. You need to know because our energy levels are not the same throughout the day. So for example, I know that between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m., my energy levels are very high. But between 11 and 1 p.m., 2 p.m., my energy levels are quite low. It's very difficult for me to focus. It's very difficult for me to get things done, right? And so it's important that you leverage this information about yourself. Remember, I talked about self-awareness being important, right? So you need to know what your energy cycle is like. You need to track your energy cycle so that you can leverage that information to how you plan your day, right? And how you build your schedule. You need to develop the right routines and habits because that also forms part of your schedule. You need to schedule time for rest and rejuvenation. It should not be an afterthought. That's the truth. So one of the mistakes I used to make was I would rest, once the day is done and everything is done. No, we all have to be very deliberate about scheduling time for rest and scheduling time for the activities that energize us. If what energizes you is hanging out with friends, make sure you have that in your schedule, that, okay, 2 Saturdays a week or 2 Friday nights or whatever, I'm going to hang out with friends because that's what gives me energy, right? If what energizes you is going to the spa, please plan a spa date. It's also very important. And then in building your schedule, include a very healthy dose of realism. Your schedule is not supposed to be optimistic. It's supposed to be realistic, right? Because one of the mistakes a lot of us make is our to-do list for a day has 15 items on it. Hello, how are we going to get it done? It's not possible, right? Literally, it's not possible. Some of the things that we try to assume, that we plan to do, even if we don't sleep in a day, we won't finish them. And when you have a schedule that is consistently like that, and you're never able to complete, you're not able to work with that schedule, you become demotivated, you become discouraged, and you're more inclined to just say, you know what, this thing doesn't work. And it doesn't work because you didn't create a realistic schedule, right? And then, as I round up, I think the 4 things that are very important is, in having structure in your life, you need to have boundaries. right? You really, really need to have boundaries, and you need to be clear on what those boundaries are for yourself, because otherwise people will disrupt your time, people will utilize your energy. So I have a friend, I mean, that I love to bits, but she has a habit of showing up in my place without telling me. And then she will stay for hours. And it just didn't work for me, because maybe she's coming at a time when I'm preparing for a meeting, or I plan to take my course. So I just want to sleep, and so I had to find a way to just tell her that it might help if you let me know ahead of time that you're coming, so that I can actually plan for you. So for me, that was me trying to set boundaries around my time, around my energy. Do you understand? Some of us have friends who Saturday morning, they'll just call us that, oh, okay, there's a wedding, let's go. And you're like, I didn't plan for a wedding on this Saturday, I just wanted to sleep. That sort of thing. And it ties to, once you have set your boundaries, you need to learn to say no to anything that is trying to infiltrate your boundaries. Now, I'm pretty sure, truth is, there are disruptions to our schedule, and the schedule is not supposed to be so rigid that we don't make accommodation for these things to happen. But the truth is, it's not everything that comes your way that you have to say yes to. Right? One of the most profound things I read recently was, every time you say yes, oh, I don't want to say no to this person. But the truth is that by saying yes to them, you're saying no to something else. So say, for example, I planned to maybe spend time with my kids, and a friend comes to say, oh, let's go and see a movie. I don't want to say no to her. And then I say yes to her. But by saying yes to my friend, I've just said no to my kids, right? I just said no to the time I was supposed to spend with them. Do you understand? So every time we say yes to somebody, we are actually saying no to something else. So let that always play at the back of our minds. Then remember that structure is an iterative process. It's a process, and it's iterative because it won't always be perfect. So you will try something out, and then maybe it doesn't work as much, and you make adjustments. Plus the fact that, because it's tied to your priorities also change. And so you need to make changes in your life. The circumstances around you change, and so you need to make a change. So take, for example, you used to have maybe a good example to use is, you used to live in Nigeria, where you had help, you had like maybe your mom helping you and all, and then you relocate, which a lot of people are doing, right? You relocate. It's very clear that you're going to have to change your structure. Or the kids were at home, right? Or rather, kids were in school, and you had a structure that worked for when they're in school. But once they come home, the rest assured, that same structure is not going to work. You need to make a change as well. So it's a constantly iterative process. And there will be disruptions and there will be distractions, right? Some of which you cannot say no to. And so you have to proactively prepare for them. So how do you prepare for them? One way is put some buffer in your schedule. Don't make your schedule so tight, so choked that you can't even breathe. Like make some room. Put an extra hour here, an extra 30 minutes that you haven't actually planned to do anything with. So that when there's disruption, when there's a legitimate request that you didn't plan for, then you can find a way to accommodate it. Okay, so I would literally just stop here and I think I went over time by about 9 minutes. I sincerely apologize. Yes, so I would hand back to you, Dr.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is really this is loaded, super loaded. So I guess, do you have questions for our guest speaker today? If you have questions, please just drop the question on the chat box, or you can just indicate the raise of, and then we give you the floor to ask your question. It was actually worth the overtime. Thank you, Ma.
Thank you.
Yes, so we're waiting for questions. Do you have questions? So let me go to the chat box to be sure that. So any question?
So maybe while we're waiting for questions, right? I mean, I was telling Timmy Tokwe that so I put this last slide because I feel like it was very high level, it was really fast. And so if anyone does feel the need that, okay, go deeper, maybe you're listening and you're like, I need help. Yeah, I think things need to change with me. You could send an email. You could send an email to me. Email address is here. I don't know if the slides are going to be shared, right? But yeah, the details are here. And then you could send an email for more details on what is available.
Okay. Okay, you can you just share your screen again so that one will be up? That particular page can be up.
Oh, I'm not sharing.
You are not sharing.
Oh, did you guys see my screen all through the presentation?
Yes, we did, but right now we are not seeing your screen anymore.
Can you see now?
Nope.
Oh, that's strange. It was showing that I was still sharing.
Actually, we're seeing your screen.
Okay,
seeing
you are
your
seeing it.
profile
Oh, I'm
again,
sorry.
yeah. But now it has gone back to everyone's face.
Okay, all right, I'm sharing now.
Okay, please.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So please, if you like to reach Bisola Kuku, please, you can get her details from the information on the screen. And she's very active on Instagram. I know that one for sure. So on Instagram, checklist.com.
Yes, but we're currently on break. So even we are taking a break.
Oh, Checklist is taking a break.
Yes, we're practicing what we preach.
So it is very important. I think somebody just dropped your email on the chat box. So if you're interested, okay, if you've not registered or you did not register and you'd like to also get the slides, you can reach out to me or Timmy Tokwe. We try to get these slides across to you. So if there are no questions, can you now drop for me on the chat box? What are your take home at the end of this section? So show some love. Show Bisola some love. Also, what have you learned from this amazing section? So just drop your learnings on the chat box.
I have a question.
Oh, you have a question? Please go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So for my question, I would just like to ask, what if you have a colleague whom you are trying to delegate a task to, and then you've taught the person severally how to get it done, but then the person intentionally keeps doing it wrongly, so you just have to continue. So what do you do in this kind of case? Because you're tired of maybe being nagged at for not giving a good report, and then you've taught someone maybe below you that this is how to write it, but the person deliberately doesn't do it well, and you keep getting queries on it. So what do you do to go about it?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I'm unmuted. I mean, question is interesting, right? Because typical me, I do not hesitate to escalate matters, right? But if I decide to go at it via another route, I'll probably say why is the person intentionally sabotaging? Maybe that's the way, right? So is it because the report is difficult to write, or is it just that the person is a lazy staff? I don't know. I mean, another thing is you've shown the person the way, but is it possible also that would creating a template help so that it makes it easier? Is it possible that this person is also overworked, and is concerned that you're just adding more to my own plate, right? And so why should I be taking up your responsibility when I am almost dying here? So it might also be a case of, do you need to rationalize what that person is also doing? And I don't know the answers to this, right? So is it that the person is already doing so much and adding the reports to it is literally another burden? So you want to probably look at it holistically in that sense. Or is it the person just maybe is being lazy and you actually need to escalate? So it could be a range of many reasons, to be honest. And I'm not sure I've answered, I've helped because I don't know the specifics of the case, but I would not say that because somebody has failed to deliver is a reason for you to take the work back. If it's something you can delegate and should delegate, then you should find a way to successfully do so, but understand the reluctance.
Thank you so much, Ebisola. Thank you. So from Jessica, she said boundaries. This is something I used to struggle with. And I'm currently working on. Thank you, Bisola. Thank you, Jessica, for sharing. Matilda, delegate what you can so you can be effective in areas of priority. Thank you, Matilda, for sharing. And Samuel, when you have a vision, you are focused. And then you can then try to say no if it doesn't align with your vision. Thank you so much, Samuel, for sharing. Ebahin Tayo said, leaving slots for unexpected demands are important, deliberately including resting my schedule, very important. When I say yes to something, I'm equally saying no to something else, creating templates that can be used by others. Super amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you to our amazing guests. It's such an honor to have you. And thank you for coming share with us. Next month, yes, so something is cooking next month. I think Bisola kind of introduced it for us a little in the area of boundaries. So next month, we are going to be talking about boundaries. You don't want to miss it. So you can follow us on our Instagram. We are DTT Tank on Instagram. So follow us so that you can get updates and we keep you updated for our next the U series webinar. Temitope, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you. God bless you.
Okay, thank you. So we see you next month. Please, thank you so much to our amazing guests. So you can give our Honorable Madam Bisola, the Chief Oga on Structure Matters. Please say thank you to her. Unmute your mic and tell our Chief Oga on Structure Matters. Thank you. Thank you, Ma. God bless you.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye,
And greet
everyone.
the kids. Love the kids.